Hi guys, welcome to Lizzie Dean Makes. I'm Lizzie Dean and today I thought I would share with you my top 10 tips for living on a very tight budget. So I'll start with number one: sell your old clothes, your games, your DVDs, your books, anything that you're not using or that you haven't used within say a year. Get it down out of the loft, get it out of the garage, get it out of the garden box, the shed, clean it, check it's all in working order and you've got all the bits with it. If you haven't, mention that in the listing, but sell it anyway. There are so many different places that you can list your items. You can list things on eBay, you can list things on Gumtree or Freecycle, you can Music Magpie. You might not get very much, but for old DVDs and things, I think they're going rate is something like 7p a DVD. You send a big box of all the old stuff. I mean, certainly we stream most of our stuff now through Amazon Prime, Netflix and the on-demand television channels. We don't actually watch television when it happens and we don't actually watch DVDs even though we own them. So sell your DVD player too. Get them up, sell them. Facebook Marketplace is another good one for selling stuff local in your area. If you've got things for babies and toddlers and your kids have outgrown them, get them up, sell them. Somebody will want them. If they're in not great condition, mention that in the listings, but you'd be surprised at what will sell. And every little bit that you make is not only decluttering your house, it's not only making space for new things that you would actually use, or new space for new hobbies and activities that you would actually like to enjoy in your home, in your space that you do have available to you. It's also bringing in a little bit here and there, which helps every situation. You know, if you sell a couple of pairs of trousers in a month, that could pay for your food shopping for that month. It's, you know, it swings and roundabouts with what you've got and what it's worth, but it really does all add up and it is worth doing. My second thing is don't eat out. Don't go to restaurants. Even if other people suggest that you go to a restaurant with them, try and convince them that you want to go to a restaurant where you can, for example, cash in your Tesco's vouchers and get meal coupons for that restaurant, or try and convince them that you would rather host them at your house for a dinner party or an afternoon tea instead, or suggest that you go for a picnic somewhere on a nice walk along a river, or you know, a nice scenic picturesque place. Find it, go there, enjoy the time with them, but without the cost. In the last year I've eaten out at a restaurant twice that I can think of. Once was my wedding anniversary with my husband. We decided to go to Pizza Express, which is my favourite, and he refused to let me get vouchers because it would make him look bad when it came time to get the bill for our wedding anniversary. But I've used Tesco's vouchers to pay for the meal at my own hen do, every and all possible occasions. Other people's, when we went bridesmaids dress shopping, I treated all the girls to a meal on my Tesco's vouchers. They get you food in a lot of places, so if you do want to eat out and there are occasions like that, then that's well worth doing. Another occasion was recently a friend of mine who's getting married next week had her hen do, and we were all going to the same restaurant. So if you're not drinking alcoholic drinks and you stick to a cheap main, I eat vegetarian, so they are often cheap mains, you can end up bringing that in under £10. So it's well worth doing, and don't be afraid of asking for tap water for your drink with a meal out as well. It's stingy, people might look at you funnily, but at the end of the day, every pound, every penny helps when you're on a tight budget. My third top tip is to not buy branded products, whether that's branded clothes, branded bleach to put down the toilet. You know, any branded product is more expensive, and most of the time you don't get anything back from that. I think there are a few exceptions where things are just either great quality or rubbish quality. It's like Marmite, but not Marmite. You know, it's either great or it's rubbish. One of those would be washing up liquid, washing up soap for when you're doing it by hand. That is either really good or it's rubbish, and that's something that my mum and I do agree on a regular basis. Is the relative quality of dishwashing liquid. But as a regular rule of thumb, every 10 pence, every 50p extra that you're paying for your tomato ketchup, for your bleach to go down the toilet, for the scrubby sponges that you use in the kitchen, for your shampoo, for your conditioner, for your moisturiser, all of these things, generally they're just the same ingredients. If you actually look at the ingredients list and compare them, they're almost identical. You don't get anything extra for that money, so it's not worth spending it on. It's worth training yourself out of, if it costs more it must be better, and training yourself into, I don't care about this product. You know, the bleach that goes down my toilet, I don't care. The scrubbing sponges that I use in the kitchen, if they do the job, that's fine. I don't care about them. There are certain things like my handbag. I would like to have a designer handbag because I like a certain designer Atkinson, and I want a Atkinson handbag, and I get a new one every year for my birthday. Hint hint to my husband, it's my birthday next week. Then I think, you know, in those instances, okay, you know, you splurge, you let yourself have your treat, but for the vast majority of the time there's no extra value in buying something branded. Top tip number 4 would be to check the price per kilogram or per milliliter or whatever when you're shopping for something, whatever it may be. If you go into the shops, you might go into a pound shop and you might see it and think, oh, that's a great price, but often they change the sizes of the packaging. You know, in one they might say that they give you 25% extra, but is that 25% extra compared to another brand or another equivalent of that in a different shop? So the best way to work out whether or not you're getting a good deal when you're shopping around is to actually look at the price per kilo or the price per milliliter of the product and compare it on that basis alone, and that will get you a good price for the item that you're shopping for. Top tip number 5 would be to find productive hobbies. So a productive hobby is anything that actually produces something that you can use, something that is of benefit to you, that you might otherwise go out and buy, or that you might otherwise have to spend money on. And because you're doing it as your hobby, you're getting the entertainment value of having it as your hobby, but you're also getting the produce out of it. So gardening or knitting or woodworking or baking or cooking, any of these sorts of productive hobbies are really good because often they're very inexpensive to get started. You don't really need a lot of gear acquisition syndrome. It's a real thing, people. You don't need a lot of stuff to get going. If you want to learn to knit or to crochet, buy one hook and a ball of yarn, buy one pair of knitting needles. You know, you don't need to get all of the stuff to be able to get started and enjoy that and start producing something that you can use. It's going to save you money in the long term because you can produce it for yourself at a much lower price more often than not. There are some things where that's not really the case anymore because of mass-produced things. For example, knitting a jumper, it's often more expensive to buy the wool than it is to go down to Primark and buy a jumper, which is mind-boggling when you think about it, but that is the fact a lot of the time. But you can find ways and means around this. For example, if you go to charity shops, you can always find balls of yarn from people who have perhaps passed on and their family members have just got rid of their whole stash, because people stash yarn, me included. So fabric stashes, yarn stashes, that sort of thing often finds its way to charity shops, as does woodworking tools, pyro art, not pyromania, wood burning art. All sorts of things like that will find their way to second-hand places where you can often get them a lot cheaper. Now, top tip number 6 is to use cashback websites. Cashback websites essentially you go onto their website, and then through them you then go and run a search on a price comparison website, or go direct to. Did it when I was kayaking and canoeing. I hate dark water. It's terrifying. You don't know what's down there. But for some reason she really enjoys it. So she actually lives down on the south coast of Britain, right near the seaside. Her house is literally a pigeon's poo away from the beach. It's a stony beach where she lives, and they go with special rubber shoe things because of the stony beach, but they go wild water swimming most mornings, and she really enjoys it. She finds it very invigorating because obviously it's freezing. It wakes you up and gets you pumped and ready for the day. You could run to work. A lot of people at my work run to and from work or cycle to and from work. It's a great way of getting that exercise in that doesn't involve a gym membership. Tip number 9 is cut down the cost of your commute. So things have changed now because my husband and I both work locally now. A couple of years ago, my husband was commuting into London. We were living outside London and he was commuting into London daily. I was driving 10 hours a week roughly, commuting sometimes 15 hours a week because of the awful traffic, commuting to my job, and we lived sort of somewhere that was middle distance between both of our jobs. Obviously you have to take jobs where you can find them, where you can get them, but the situation was such that we did the maths, and he had to work for 3 months of the year in a well-paid job to pay to get to work, which means that he was actually only earning money for 9 months of the year. And when you think about it in those terms, those kinds of costs are just ridiculous. It was worth it in a way for the job that he was doing in London waiting, compared to the amount that he would be paid if he worked in a local job, potentially doing the same role. I don't know, but it is awful, the costs of commuting. Hundreds and hundreds of pounds in petrol each month, or hundreds and hundreds of pounds going out on a train pass, and even then with the train pass you don't even get a seat, so what's the point? So what I would say is carpool with other people, or carpool within your own house. So we're currently, my husband and I are carpooling. We work 2 different jobs with 2 different sets of hours, but we only have 1 car. So one of us might have to wait for a couple of hours in the morning before they actually start work from the time we arrive, and the other one might have to wait a couple of hours in the evening after they finish work before the pair of us can drive home. It's still a lot cheaper than running 2 cars and 2 lots of petrol, because 15 hours a week of driving in 2 separate cars is going to be a lot more expensive, whereas hanging out at the local library, or in my case Sainsbury's, for a couple of hours is a lot more cost effective, because it only involves 1 travel to and from where we work and where we live. As long as you avoid the emotional spending in Sainsbury's while you're waiting there, that could be a big pitfall. But you could carpool, you could cycle, you could walk, you could run, you could catch the bus instead of getting on the train. It might take longer, but it might be more cost effective. Looking at different ways of achieving your commute, and actually also looking at ways of finding a job that isn't so far away from where you live, or finding a place to live that isn't so far away from where you work. It's worthwhile constantly trawling through Zoopla or Rightmove, searching for opportunities that come up in the area you want to live, or searching the job sites looking for jobs that come up in the area where you actually live. It's a worthwhile use of your time. And finally, my budget living top tip number 10 is to actually save your money. So there's a difference between saving money, where you spend less because you made the choice to buy a different product that wasn't branded or something, where you're saving money, and actually saving money where you put it away and you lock it into a savings account that you can't access. So having a regular saver account where you put money out of your account each month on payday, so you don't even know you had that money, but it ties that money in maybe for a year, maybe for 2 years. There are various different savings options out there. You often get a much better percentage interest rate on your savings if they are tied in versus if you can access them easily. Now, there's a balance. You need emergency fund that you can access in the short term, and that might be something good for a cash ISA or something like that you can just grab that money and it's not going to have any repercussions. There's not going to be any penalties for dipping into those emergency fund savings versus saving money that goes into locked in funds which have a much higher percentage interest rate on them, but you can't actually touch that money for a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years even, while it's being saved and it is accruing interest and things. It's actually an investment of your money. So understanding the difference between saving money on what you spend and saving your money and actually saving your money each month is, I think, a big key thing. One of the things that we've fallen down on as a couple is that we have never stuck to having an emergency fund. I have saved money left, right and centre. I've put it away here, I've squirreled it away there, I've squirreled it away there, and I've ended up using that money for every emergency that comes up. So we've never actually had a dedicated emergency fund. Instead, all of our savings have been in short-term places that have been able to be touched. So what we've changed now is that we now lock our money in when we're saving it, and we have short-term savings that are accessible that act as an emergency fund. We don't have enough of an emergency fund yet because both my husband was poorly and then I've been poorly, so we've had statutory sick pay and not enough salaries and all of the joys that come with being long-term sick. I'm still in a phased return to work, but hopefully we'll be back up to full strength soon, and then we'll get that emergency fund sorted, because it has been, I think, the key mistake that we've made as a couple all the way along is that we haven't had a dedicated emergency fund separate from our savings, and we haven't had a dedicated emergency fund that we keep topped up on a regular basis. We saved for things. So we saved for our wedding, we saved for buying a load of camping equipment because we wanted to go camping, we saved for when we wanted to buy the house and we needed to get a bit more on our deposit in order to achieve our mortgage. We have saved for things, but we're not very good at saving for an emergency fund and keeping it topped up and there all the time, and that's something that we're working on changing now, and saving our long-term savings for the future, for when we want to have children, or whatever big life events we're going to need a nest egg for. That needs to be separate and locked in and untouchable by these sorts of, oh no, the radiator's gone on the car, or whatever it might be, where you suddenly have to pay out, the dog's been bitten by another dog and has an emergency vet's bill of £800. Yeah, £800. Luckily we had insurance and the other dog owner had insurance and it was covered, but you still have to stamp up that money up front and get it back from the insurance company later. You need that emergency money there, and that's been, I think, a key mistake we've made, is not keeping that topped up. And having just sort of a splurge of savings, but not really put down and nailed down into what it's savings for, how it's saved, differentiating the different kinds of saving and differentiating the different types of savings account that you can have, the locked in versus the non-locked in ready access. And I think that's a key thing to living on a very small budget, is you can live on a very small budget until something unexpected happens, until you get that speeding ticket that you can't afford to pay because you haven't got any emergency money, until you get that boiler breakdown where you suddenly got to pay out for a new gas boiler and you don't have the money. You need that emergency money, and then you need your long-term savings, and they need to be different things, and they need to be dedicated as different things. So those are my top 10 tips for living on a very tight budget. I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have, please like the video below. Leave me any comments with your top 10, with your top tips on living on a very tight budget. And if you like this video, please hit the subscribe button below for more videos like this. Thanks a lot. Bye.